always hard talking after Jeff because that guy can talk. Boy, can he talk.
Yeah, but not like
So we're going to talk, part 3 is a little bit about where do we go now, but it's also, I want to talk to you a little bit about the division that's within our country right now. One man cannot make a de jure society. If he was to decide how everything was to go from this point forward, he would be no better than the dictators that we have in office right now. The grand jury case and the claim of royal rights chart the way for a future that's created by the people and for the people. They've laid an opportunity at our feet for a better Canada, and we require the active participation from all of you to make this move forward. So when they first said, why don't you stand up for LG, for Alberta, I said, I can't do that, I'm not qualified. And then as I got to know more and more about what they did at the grand jury, what they learned from the grand jury, I started to believe in myself, and I said, well, why am I not qualified? So if you compare me to our current leader, we can just take a look here. First of all, I completed my university education, not once but 3 times. As a single mother, I learned how to balance my checkbook, and I learned not to take on too much debt. Compare that to our current leader. I have a good heart with good intent and a will to see our country succeed. I'm not profiting from this initiative in any way. It's actually costing me a little bit, but that's okay. I appreciate our truly Canadian identity. I love our national anthem, the original version, and I love our national flag. I understand enough about the Constitution to know that the current government is not governing according to the Constitution, and in preceding governments as well. And I'll stand up and make my oath onto the Constitution of Canada. So I want to talk a little bit about why the de jure society is the best option. If you look what we have in place right now, this is an article from a Supreme Court case in 1951, and Angèle spoke to it briefly. Actually, she has this memorized. What it reads from that Supreme Court judgment is, the Constitution of Canada does not belong either to the Parliament or to the legislatures. It belongs to the country, and it is there that the citizens of the country will find the protection of the rights to which they are entitled. Powerful statement from a powerful court. It is we the people who own the Constitution, and it's we the people that can amend it, abolish it, or adopt it as we see fit. With that right, I want to remind you that we have great responsibility. This is another reason why we need to change our political infrastructure. This is a case from Wilton Littlechild in Alberta in 1990. And what this was about was when the GST legislation was going to be adopted, the constituents of this fellow took him to court saying that he's not representing their wishes. And what happened in this judgment, the judge says, I know of no legal duty on an elected representative at any level of government to consult with his constituents or determine their views. While such an obligation may generally be considered desirable, there is no legal requirement. Folks, the people that we elect have no legal requirement to govern according to our wishes. So why are we wasting our time? Here is another little thank you. Here's another little piece of legislation that I thought was important. This comes out of the Alberta Legislation Act, Assembly Act, and what it says right on page 2 of that document, it says all persons making use of this consolidation are reminded that it has no legislative sanction, that amendments have been embodied for convenience of reference only. So what documents do have relevance in our current system? I'm not sure. There's a couple other excerpts there about immunity for members. And basically what that says is if you're a member of the assembly and you're acting under the assembly, you are immune from any prosecution. So it gives them legal legs to stand on, and they can pretty much do whatever they want, and that's what they do. So if de jure societies isn't the way to go, and you think that we can just elect another party, I want to show you that that's maybe not the case. All you need to do is go to Paralinfo or Canadian Parliament webpage and look at speeches from the throne, and they have them listed there from maybe the 1920s all the way up to current. On the next page I pulled 5 different decades of excerpts from those speech thrones, and they basically say the same thing year after year after year after year. The same promises are said over and over and over again. If there was any resolution to the promises that they were giving us, they wouldn't have to keep making these promises, but they don't. These examples are just from the budget. Each one says that they're going to live towards their budget, they're going to reduce the deficit, and it doesn't matter what they say, whether it's in regards to taxes, in regards to the budget, in regards to looking after our First Nations people, in regards to protecting the environment. The same promises are made over and over and over again, and we never see any resolution. Electing another party doesn't work. Something else that you can do on your own is take a look at where the money comes for the politicians. Go to Elections Canada and look into the contributions, and you'll find some interesting things. I pulled out a few just to show you. So the first one here is Frank Goostra and his contributions. What I want to show you is that corruption supports both sides of the political spectrum. So it doesn't matter whether you're left or you're right. The people that are giving you the money to do your thing are supporting both sides. Frank Goostra, you can see sometimes he goes just by Frank Goostra, sometimes it's Frank F. Goostra. He's got 2 different postal codes in there. And if you don't know anything about Frank Goostra, it's easy to do a Google search and you'll see some of the headlines that we're showing here today, heavily involved with the Clinton Uranium One scandal. Corruption supports both sides. The next one I want to show you is the Bronfmans, and again, another well-heeled family in our society that support both sides. All members of the Bronfman families support to liberals or conservatives. And again, you can see that they go by the same names, they go by different postal codes, and they support both parties. Again, if you're not familiar with the Bronfmans, do a Google search. You will find these headlines under that search. Seagram heiress Claire Bronfman pleads guilty in the Nixium sex slave case. That's a court case that's ongoing currently in the United States. It's a huge child trafficking, enslavement cult that's on trial right now. Stephen Bronfman, lead fundraiser for Trudeau in 2015, linked to the offshore tax haven Paradise Papers, also known as Panama Papers. There was a huge leak that listed all of the corporations and people that have used offshore tax havens to hide their revenue so that they don't have to pay taxes. We're losing $8 billion a year in revenue from these people that hide their money. The Canada Revenue Agency has been looking into this. It's already, I think, 3 years old, and there has not one charge been laid yet. So do you think that these people with money can pull strings? You bet they do. Corruption supports both sides. The last example here is the Desmarais. Those of you in Quebec are very familiar with that name. A very powerful family. Paul Desmarais, of course, took over Power Corp in 1968. Power Corp has multiple companies listed under that name, including companies in transportation, pulp and paper, large financial organizations, and communications. There's a quote here from the Globe and Mail that I thought was very interesting, and it says, Desmarais has been personally consulted by prime ministers on every major federal, economic, and constitutional initiative since the 1970s. Most of the time, they've taken his advice. Who's pulling the strings and who's running the government? I would suggest to you that it's these powerful corporations with their lobbying that are making the decisions. This is a long one, and I want to read it because it's an excellent summary of how our politics run in this country.
That was the right word.
Yeah, in this corporation. So Canada's elite own the banks and financial institutions, own our central bank, which sets the interest rates, gives loans and collect on debt, pushing people deeper into servitude and slavery. Poverty as punishment. They control our media, which shapes our views and opinions. They sit on the boards of our universities, putting future generations into debt before they have a chance at life, and control the knowledge economy for which they have defined the purpose of education. They influence and control our governments and political leaders. They sit on the boards of the think tanks that write policy and promote political agendas, and they run the foundations and claim themselves to be benevolent philanthropists, when philanthropy at its best is moral masturbation for the wealthy, a way to feel good about their vast disparity of wealth, and all its more organized levels is simply a means through which to engage in social engineering and social control, to give a little in order to continue taking so much. They profit off the foreign wars our country wages and supports, blood plunderers of the Congo, Afghanistan, and Libya. The Canadian elite rule the country as a proxy for the American empire, acting as a resource suction cup for the behemoth below us, providing the United States with most of its oil, water, electricity, and timber. Those rapacious parasites claim they hold the answers to the crisis they cause and create and profit from. This is an article from an alternative media representative, Andrew Gavin Marshall, from the Media Co-op, and if you ever get an opportunity to go and look at some of the articles that he writes, he does a very good job at identifying all of the links between the corporate elites and the government officials. Does a very good job. So the New World Order, I don't want to talk a whole lot about that. A lot of people still believe that it's a conspiracy theory. I'm going to show you a little bit of why it's not. We, Canada, signed on to the Universal Agenda for Humanity in 2015, and there are still people that are not aware of what the UN Agenda 2030 is all about. So what they've done is they've created some 17 sustainable goals in order to further their agenda of one world government. If you look at a lot of things that are happening in our world today, they all tie in to these 17 sustainable goals, such as the climate change propaganda, such as the gender issues, such as the failing education of our children. Everything ties in to these 17 sustainable goals. The New World Order is not new. In fact, it's been implemented over a very long time, a little bit at a time, so that we don't notice what's going on. This is an excerpt from a throne speech in 1945. And what it reads: "In the building of a new world order, my ministers are determined to seek, above all else, the promotion of peace, work, and health in domestic and international relations. So, not new to Canada, just not well covered by the media. We need to get this message out that this is what they're trying to do, and get the message out that people need to take a look at those sustainable development goals and compare what it says in those goals to what's occurring in our environment today. So this is a short video from Press for Truth, Dan Dix. He does an excellent job at showing how widespread the New World Order is and for how long it's been going on. But there are still people that don't know about it.
Some have to be changed.
Our view is that all of these national systems of regulation have to be fixed, but there also has to be international coordination. There has to be an international peer review process for national regulations, so there is transparency. There's peer review and peer assessment. We undergo that in Canada. It's been very useful when we have undergone it, and we think all countries need to be part of that. It does not detract from national sovereignty. Nation states are clearly going to exercise their rights to regulate their financial system. But in a globalized economy, we are going to have to take global responsibilities. And there is going to have to be some semblance of global governance on these questions. We can't operate where major financial systems are operating in a manner that is not transparent, because it infects the entire global economy. So that problem does have to be fixed.
The hope that each of us has to build a new world order in which nations and peoples with different systems and different values can live together in peace.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order.
It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind.
Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge.
There is a chance for the President of the United States to use this disaster to carry out what his father, a phrase his father used, I think, only once, and hasn't been used since, and that is a new world order.
There's a need for a new world order. In the next few years, a solution will emerge that people will look into that cauldron and decide that they have to learn the elements. But I think that at the end of this administration, with all its turmoil, and at the beginning of the next, we might actually witness the creation of a new order.
After 1989, President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
It is a new mindset that the world now needs. It is a real global New Deal that we need, an ecological and an economic New Deal that we need. In the name of France, I call upon all states to join ranks in order to found the new world order of the 21st century.
I think the New World Order is emerging, and with it the foundations of a new and progressive era of international cooperation. We need a world of shared global rules, founded on shared global values.
When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
The New World Order essentially is an agenda. It's a plan to unite the world into one, whether it be one world government, one world cash system, one world religion. It's all about uniting everything into one.
That's good. So one world government, one world finance, one world healthcare. If you want to talk about sovereignty, any further movements within this agenda, we will lose all of our sovereignty to the United Nations. I said that. Yep. Okay, so I can't tell you the official narrative of the 17 sustainable goals and exactly what they're doing to make this happen, the UN Agenda 2030, to make it happen. But I can tell you I know enough to question the official narrative. And I don't believe they're telling us the whole story. The grand jury provides factual evidence that our leaders have not been forthright about the state of our Constitution, the supreme law, and about the Corporation of Canada, or about the injustice in our justice system. So if they're not honest to us about these basic things, what else are they dishonest about? What are they telling us about climate change? What is the truth? Taxes, education, and so on. Those leaders are selected before we even have a chance to vote. So unity is the key if we're going to move forward, and especially with a de jure society. As a nation, the more divided we are, the weaker we are. Our country has never been so divided, whether that division is based on race, religion, political beliefs, social status, educational level, or nationality. I have never seen so much division in social media in my lifetime. It doesn't matter to those who want to further this agenda. What they want to do is to divide us, and they do that through deception and distraction. So what I want to encourage all of you is drop the rhetoric. It doesn't matter Muslim, Canadian, Jewish, religion, sex, anything. Drop the rhetoric, because as you've seen from the previous slides, those who are selected from the political elites to create division, and the elites support both sides. They are creating the division, and we need to forget about all of that division and concentrate on a de jure society and move forward. The plan has long been developed and slowly implemented. Like you've seen, there was an excerpt in 1945 in our speech to the throne. What we need to do is counter this evil by exposing the government. So that's where our focus needs to be. Not on race, not on religion, not on education, but what is the government doing to deceive us? We need to expose that. There's three vital elements if we're to move forward, and that is unity. We need to be united. The more we can come together and get people together, the stronger we'll be. The more they are allowed to divide us, the weaker we'll be. Morality. We need to move forward with morals. We need to bring back those morals that we were raised with. And truth. Never be afraid to stand up and speak the truth. So I just want to give you a couple of examples of how they create the division. We need to create communities of caring where we rebuild the family unit and strengthen our resolve so that we're not reliant on fabricated social programs that are meant to fracture the family, not support it. They understand that the family is the cornerstone, the foundation of everything that this country is built on, and they're trying to fracture it. We need to demand that we retain parental authority and not secede to government intervention in the